Dealing with the loss of a loved pet can be absolutely devastating and agonizing. Some people are absolutely shocked that they feel such extent of grief when a loved pet dies. I'm Karen Andrews. I'm a clinical psychologist, and my mission is to bring mental health into every home. In this video, I want to talk about the relationships that humans form with animals. Then I'm going to discuss a few principles or themes that I have learned from years of working with grieving clients, from my studies, and also from my own personal experiences of loss. Then I'm going to suggest 5 strategies that may be really helpful to you if you are grieving the loss of a loved pet. Humans can form incredibly deep bonds with animals. It doesn't really matter what kind of animal the animal that you loved was. What matters is that you had a close relationship with your pet. There are many examples in the literature and, in fact, in scientific research that animals have been an integral part of human development and evolution to experience deep bonds of connection across species. When you really love your pet and you lose your pet, it is normal for you to suffer deep and painful grief. You may feel that many people or most people wouldn't understand because, it was only a dog or only a cat or only a bird for that matter. But you may be surprised if you explore amongst your friendship groups, you will find that many people report deep and painful grief after the loss of a pet. In fact, some people say that they grieved their pet more than they grieved the loss of certain people in their lives. And that's okay. Everybody has the right to grieve the loss that they experience. There is no right or wrong way to grieve. Every person's grief is completely unique. Some people prefer to lock it away and keep busy and distracted as much as possible. Other people absolutely shut down and can't bear to interact with anyone. It doesn't really matter. What your expression of grief is unique to you, and that's okay. There's also no time limit to grief. When you're grieving a painful loss, it may take you a lot longer than you expected to get over it. And that's also okay. Some people may be overcome by grief years after they experience the loss. Other people come to a place of acceptance a little more quickly. It really depends on you as an individual and how you personally process things. Just as there's no right or wrong way to experience grief, there is no correct time limit for grief. You see, the thing is that grief comes in waves. It is not something that is constant. It may seem constant, particularly at the beginning, but it usually hits you in waves. And between the waves of grief, you might actually feel absolutely normal, and that actually might make you feel guilty. You don't have to feel guilty. Both the waves and the periods of feeling normal in between the waves are very common to the experience of people who are grieving a painful loss. A wave of grief is usually triggered by something. It can be a thought or an image. It can be that you reach down to pat the head of your dog who is normally close by your side, or you realize that the warmth of your cat at the end of your bed is just not there. Or it could be a picture or somebody saying something to you. Any of these things can trigger a wave of grief. And when the wave of grief comes, it can be extremely painful and it can carry all kinds of emotions. The most common emotion associated with grief is, of course, sadness. And I'm sure you're going through a lot of sadness. But there are other emotions as well, including things like loneliness and emptiness. And there may also be a lot of guilt and anger. The guilt is really common to people grieving a loss. You tend to think thoughts like, if only I had done more of this or less of that, or if only I had noticed that he was ill earlier, or if only I had taken her for more walks, or whatever it might be. These kinds of thoughts are very common, and the intense guilt that is associated with these thoughts is also very common. At the same time, there may be a lot of anger And the anger can be directed in all kinds of places. You might be angry with your pet for leaving you, for maybe putting himself or herself in the way of injury, if that was what happened. You might be angry with the vet. You might be angry with family members. You might be furious with yourself. And you might be angry with God if you're religious. And this is all normal kinds of anger as well. As I said, these emotions tend to all come together and they tend to come in waves. When a wave hits you, it's as well to not try and fight it. In fact, fighting your grief and refusing to acknowledge and sit with your grief is one of the ways that grief gets stuck, and that makes it much harder to process and to eventually come to a place of acceptance. So I'm going to give you 5 strategies that will hopefully help you in not only understanding your grief, but in coping with it a little better. The first strategy is to acknowledge your pain, acknowledge your grief, and acknowledge the waves when and as they come. In the beginning, the waves come close together and they come very often. They tend not to last for very, very long, especially if you don't deny them. So when a wave of grief comes, allow it to be. Allow yourself to feel whatever you feel. Allow yourself to sit with the emotions that come up as they arise, and be patient with yourself as you do so. If you're finding this video helpful in any way, then please click the like button and the subscribe button, because that is really helpful in terms of the algorithm and it also means a lot to me. The second strategy is to take care of yourself. I know that this might seem a bit obvious, but when you're dealing with a loss, you may not take care of yourself in the way that you should. When I say the basics, what I mean is the real basics, the foundational stuff. Sleep, food, regular meals, drink enough water, get some exercise, even if it's just a little walk, even if it's just some fresh air. These things all really help. It's not only that taking care of the basics helps you, it's that if you don't take care of the basics, you will be in a much worse place. You will be far less able to deal with the pain of the grief waves as they come up. Take care of yourself so that you can come to a better place as soon as you possibly can. The third strategy is to reach out to friends, to family, to online groups, or to some kind of therapist or psychologist, or even your doctor. Reach out to whoever you need. You know, you are the person who really understands what you need. So take care of yourself by reaching out to others. This is a time when you need human connection and support. And if your friends and family are not able to help you, then please do reach out to some kind of counseling or therapy. The fourth strategy is to set up some kind of goodbye ritual and some kind of grief rituals. When we lose a pet, you often don't have any kind of ritual to say goodbye. There may not be a funeral organized by anyone. You may not even have the body of your pet. Nevertheless, it is really important that you set up some kind of ritual to say goodbye. Whether it's burying your loved pet in a specific place, scattering their ashes possibly, or even lighting a candle, or writing a letter, or putting roses out onto the ocean, or any kind of flower. That is a really helpful way of saying goodbye and coming to a place of closure and acceptance. Western culture isn't particularly comfortable with grief, and you might find that you yourself are not comfortable with expressing grief. But you know, having an outward material expression of your pain is actually very, very helpful to your healing. So make an effort to have some kind of larger kind of memorial or funeral service. Even if this is months after you lost your pet, that's okay. You can do it now, whenever you're ready. And it's also really nice to preserve their memory and to have some kind of memorial small thing that you do. Maybe at Christmas, you light a candle. Maybe when you pick up your magazine and sit down in your comfy armchair, you take a moment to think about your loved pet. Whatever kind of ritual is comforting for you is the right kind of ritual and will be helpful in your healing. The fifth and last strategy is to preserve the memories of your pet. You know, when you suffer a painful loss, it can be instinctive to kind of just wipe the slate, erase all memories, let go of every toy or trinket or anything that reminds you of the loss of your pet because it hurts so much. That is a normal response, but it's actually really helpful to hold on to those things because over time, this intensity of pain is going to lessen and you will begin to be able to remember the joy and to celebrate the life of the pet that you loved so much. Whether it's photos, videos on your phone, or actual material, toys and trinkets, doesn't really matter, but keep something to remind you of your much loved pet. If you have found this video to be useful, then please drop me a comment. If you have questions that you would like me to answer, then please let me know and I will make a video to answer your question.